And so that's just a symbol because literally you're hearing the sound through that Zoom box. And then you're seeing the faces of the clergy in multiple Zoom boxes, but we're going to spotlight the speaker if we're able. We're going to try this and see if the people behind the scenes are able to spotlight the speaker each time. So you'll be in speaker view. If you go to gallery view, you'll see all of the boxes once again. But most of the time you'll see one person on the screen this week, and we'll try it. And please continue to give us your feedback. This is new for all of us. But we're trying, we are learning, we've learned a lot. And one thing that we've learned is that even in a time of pandemic, to gather on Zoom once a week for Shabbat means a whole lot. It really brings us out of a sense of isolation into the comfort of community, into our temple Beth Elohim. So I hope that for the next 45 minutes or an hour, as we do each week, you're able to kind of turn off the cell phone or the distractions, even that may reside in your home, and begin to tune in to what we know is truly important in the world. And that's really the moments we share, the appreciation of the world's beauty, the gratitude for breath and life. This is a beautiful time of year, of course, in New England. It doesn't take much to look outside and see the earth's grandeur. This week is also the beginning of the Torah portion, Bereshit, when we actually read the story of creation and the Garden of Eden and the words, Vayehi, that it was good. And when humanity is created, it was very good, Tov Ma'od. So with that sense of wonder and gratitude, let's begin as we celebrate Shabbat. Cantor. So let's begin. Rabbi Sapphire coming in, zooming in all the way from Needham, Massachusetts. Good to see you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So let us take a deep breath as we begin to welcome Shabbat. As Rabbi Sissimai mentioned, this Shabbat, we hear of the creation of the world. We hear of the first light that was created. So as we bring in the light of Shabbat this evening, let us picture the light that Shabbat will illuminate for us in the day ahead. And let's think about what it is that we want to be illuminated for us. So I'm going to light the Shabbat candles. I invite you to do the same if you have them with you at home.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
And we continue with the words of Shalom Aleichem as we welcome the angels that greet us on Shabbat.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
When we study the mitzvot, the sacred obligations of our tradition, we learn that Shabbat is not just an entity that arrives, but rather a presence that is to be created and then received. So we move into the section of the service, Kabbalat Shabbat, the receiving of Shabbat, with the words of Lachadodi.
Shamor v'zachor b'diborecha, hishmi'anu el ha'miyuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litchila, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechuven elcha, ki hi mekor haveracha merosh mikedem, nezucha sof maaseh b'machshava tchila, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabela.
Awake.
Hitoreri, hitoreri,
Awake to the world.
kiva orech, kumi ori, uri uri, shir daberi, kvod Adonai, alaich nigla, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabela, yalalai, 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 We invite you at home, if you are able,
to stand in body or spirit to greet the Sabbath bride. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzohala, toch emunei am simula.
We welcome Shabbat.
Boi chala, boi chala, holecha dodi likrat kala, o pnei Shabbat nekabela, holecha dodi likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Pnei Shabbat nikabela.
We center ourselves with the words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
And as we continue with a creative rendition of Hashkivenu, the word Let There Be Love, I'll pass it over to Zach Gondelman.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, L'Shalom. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu, L'Shalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
So before we continue, I just want to say I was able to scan through the gallery view, and it's good to see some new faces, some faces that have been sitting on the same chair or in the same room for the past 6 months every Friday night. I'm seeing little children, I'm seeing pets, I'm seeing students coming home from college appropriately wearing masks inside their home for a few days. I'm seeing people in different time zones because I see that the sun hasn't set in certain locations. But I'm seeing all of us come together as one, celebrating as a community. It's great to see everyone. If you're able and would like to rise, please do. If not, if you can kind of place your feet on the ground and sit with intention as we turn ourselves to the tefillah, the central part of our service, where we take moments for individual prayer and meditation to express our gratitude for this week.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalalai, lai, lai, 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 yalalai, lai, lai.
Let us take a moment for private meditation, expressing our thanks. Thinking about our country and our world at this time, we pray for peace with the words, Oseh Shalom, may peace descend on us, on all Israel, on all the world.
Oseh shalom b'mrama. Oseh shalom b'mrama. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oh, say shalom. B'mrama. Oh, say shalom. B'mrama. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu.
And so we now continue with the words of Misha Berach, a prayer for healing, for those in need of healing of body, of soul, of mind. And as we've done each week, we're going to open up the chat room for you to be able to type the name or names of those individuals you're thinking of. And of course, let me add all of those individuals around the world who are suffering from COVID-19. We also think of those individuals who are now being listed in the chat room, many members of our own community. As we continue with the words of Misha Berach, may God grant them strength, may God grant them healing.
Misheberach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imoteinu Mekor HaBracha Lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And of course, each week we pause for our Shehachianu moments, thanking God for those sacred moments that we've shared during the past week. And I want to do something a little different just to begin, because we're trying something new with these cameras. And I want to say to my clergy partners, thank you for your willingness to try something new. Boy, are you getting close-ups. And when I look at you, everyone's seeing the side of my face, and now they're seeing the side of Rabbi Sherman's face. So I thought, since they're used to the High Holy Days where we had 4 professional cameras in the sanctuary, I'd show you a little behind the scenes. So Stephen, if you can just keep the camera on me, but I'm going to put my mask on, because all of the cameras we're using, instead of the fancy professional cameras, are just from our laptop. So you may as well see what we're doing back here. See, here I am. I just left the Bima, and you can see Cantor Zell and Rabbi Sherman have their computers in front of them. And then if I go around our sanctuary, there are very few chairs. They're set up for the bat mitzvah tomorrow. And then we've got Max and Devin and Stephen in the sanctuary behind the scenes. And here we are. And now I'm going to go back onto the Bima.
A true Shehachianu moment.
Exactly. Now that I'm in the plexiglass, I can take this off and say, I'm going to go into gallery view so I can see if you've celebrated a birthday this past week. Love you to raise your hands so that we can say happy birthday. I see a few. Happy birthday, Yom Huledet Sameach. How about an anniversary, an October wedding? I actually had the opportunity to officiate at a beautiful wedding. The skies did open up today in Princeton, Massachusetts, high up on a beautiful hill near Wachusett. But for that half an hour underneath the chuppah, it was dry for Mike Cohen, the son of Bunny and Stephen, who married Jill Rosenberg today. So mazel tov. How about if you're celebrating a bat mitzvah tomorrow? Eliza, I see you. Kate as well. How about if you are recuperating, you're feeling a little better than you did last week? Raise your hand.
I see some hands raised.
There are several people feeling a little better this week. I'm so pleased. Lots to be thankful for. How about welcoming new life into the world in your family? Or a new experience this week? Or a new color that you witnessed outside? Let us give thanks for so much that we've shared. Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
So before Rabbi Sherman speaks, I should say, I hope I didn't confuse people, we are having bar mitzvah services in our sanctuary each week with limits of 18 people in the room along with the clergy. Friday nights, our numbers are far too large to gather in the sanctuary, but I'm really thankful that we have this medium. At this point, I am going to put my mask on so that you no longer will see the side of my face so that I can see Rabbi Sherman. And I'm going to take one of the chairs that is actually set up in the sanctuary because this evening, Rabbi Sherman will have the opportunity to share words of Torah. Rabbi.
Thank you. It'll be good to have some people to share words of Torah. And so recently, I've eaten a lot of apples. Perhaps you have as well. Green and red and even the yellow ones. Sweet, tart, and crunchy. I love this time of year. The color-changing leaves, the crisp, vest-wearing morning air, the layers, the caramel, the hot coffee, my 90s acoustic playlist on Spotify, and the pieces, or 20, or 48, of Halloween candy that somehow ended up in our pantry. See, apples to me are autumn, and autumn arrives Parshat Bereshit, as we return and turn again to the beginning of the Torah, a parsha where we read about trees and apples. And so given my penchant for eating apples and the goodness I ascribe to that action, I wondered this week, within a week of noise, and even the important noise, where can I find the goodness in the apples from the Garden of Eden? Many of us know the story well. On the sixth day of creation, God created human beings, and in the image of God, God created them. And at some point after that creation, after the first Shabbat, Adam and Eve were living in that garden, enjoying a simple and utopian existence with one rule: not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Now, sometime later, and perhaps with some deceptive encouragement from a small serpent, Eve takes the fruit of that forbidden tree and she eats from it. She passes it to Adam and he enjoys it as well. And in that moment, maybe of sin or of weakness, a series of profound events happens. Now, it starts with a whole lot of grade school finger pointing and blame. But to me, it doesn't really matter who encouraged the eating. It doesn't matter who tried it first. What amazes me most in this moment is God's reaction, which on the surface is one of great anger and frustration. You sin, you make a bad choice, and there are consequences. And God's reaction is particularly harsh: banishment from the garden. But this year, I want to read this text a little differently. For we live in a world that is desperately crying out for compassion. And so, trying to read goodness and compassion into the text, I wonder if we can understand God's response in a different way. And so Adam and Eve eat the fruit. And first, the text tells us that God opens their eyes. And in that moment, they realize that they are naked, which the text suggests is a negative experience. However, Rashi, he teaches us that Adam and Eve were not originally blind, but rather, in this moment, their mind's eye was opened. That mind's eye that is the creative source within us, the mind wandering, the dreaming that leads to untold creation and escape. God's first response is to grant us the possibility of creativity. Second, Adam and Eve are told that they will experience pain. In the text, it explicitly says physical pain. But here in this response, I want to read that God gives us the ability to feel and even to express feelings or emote, the good and the challenging. Third, they are told that they will have to work the land and that they must toil and till the earth in order to enable growth. And here I see God granting us the wisdom to care for ourselves and the land and our earth, and to be partners with God in the ongoing work of creation in our world. And if that wasn't enough, V'yishlachehu Adonai Elohim migan Eden, that they were sent out of Gan Eden. And often we understand this verse to mean that Adam and Eve were banished from the garden. But a closer read of the first Hebrew word, shalach, that God sent them, has within it the implication of being a messenger, a shaliach. In this moment, God gives us a sacred job to be God's messengers in the world. And that's because I believe that God knew that humanity needed to live outside the garden, even where life can be complicated and complex. And we live in that world. And it seems, at least in our time, that this is the case now more than ever. A world that includes a great deal of sorrow and sin, but there's goodness too. See, if we didn't have that creative spark, what would give our lives meaning? If we didn't have feelings or emotions, what would give our lives meaning? If we didn't have to toil and cultivate in whatever way that may be, what would give our lives meaning? And so Adam and Eve ate this forbidden fruit, and on account of this act, God provides humanity the opportunity and gift of being fully human, to be creative, to care for others and ourselves, and to cultivate the land for good. Now, being in the garden, of course, must have been pretty great. The direct communication with God and boundless sustenance. But we also know that in the garden, Adam and Eve were not the human beings you and I are now. In fact, we are taught that originally they were one figure, two sides of the same body. In that sense, humanity needed to leave the garden to become who we are today. With this forbidden fruit, God gave us the tools to live fully and to be messengers in this world and bringing godliness into it. Had we not been sent out of the garden, there would be no one to talk about and act on what being godly is all about. And what is being godly? It's recognizing the ongoing beauty of creation by the works of each and every one of us. We don't have to look very far. It's filled in our community. We are godly when we lift up creativity in body and spirit, when we care for and show compassion to those close to us and even those far from us. We are godly when we create order in this world, when we perform mitzvot, and even when we fulfill our civic obligations. For this is the cultivating and the toiling that God asks of us. Now, we know that our tradition teaches us that we all stood at Sinai, that we were all witnesses to the moment of revelation. But there is a parallel teaching, reminding us how we all were present in the garden as well. Reb Zusia once asked his brother, the wise Rabbi Elimelech, saying, "Dear brother, in the scriptures we read that the souls of all humanity were comprised in Adam, and so too we must have been present when he ate the apple. I don't understand how I could have let him eat it, and how you could have let him eat it." And so Elimelech replied, "We had to, just as all had to. For had he not eaten, the poison of the snake would have remained within him in all eternity. He would have always thought, all I need to do is eat of this tree, and I shall be as God. All I need to do is eat of this tree, and I shall be as God." We had to let Adam and Eve eat from the tree. In this grand plan for humanity in our world, God knew humans were not designed to live confined in a garden, but that there was an entire world to fill, to nurture and grow. And in doing so, we deepen our relationship with the earth, with each other, and ultimately with God. And it was good, and it is good. Being banished from the Garden of Eden, which is so typically associated with loss, was inevitable. And yet it opened up a world of opportunity and blessing. V'nahar yetsa me'eden lahashkot et hagan. A river flows from Eden to water the garden. Lest we think that we can never experience the goodness of Eden in our world, our Parsha tells us that a river, a source of life and blessing, flows forth from Eden into our existence. This sacred and divine water flows through all that is, was, and will be. It flows through the works of our hands, our hearts, our bodies, our minds, our souls. And where does it go? To a garden, of course. And where is that? It's within each of us. Eden is always within reach, but we don't have to reach backwards or upwards to dwell in its goodness. God gave us the tools we need to experience it in our world. And now it's up to us. Shabbat Shalom.
Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa, v'hinei tov me'od. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa, v'hinei tov me'od. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa, v'hinei tov me'od. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa, v'hinei tov me'od. There was evening, there was morning, there was evening, there was morning. Vayhi erev, vayhi boker, tov me'od. Vayhi erev, vayhi boker, tov me'od.
So we now continue with the words of Mourner's Kaddish, and we think of all of those who have passed away recently, especially those relatives of members of our own community who have passed away during the past 30 days. And I call to mind Julian Beinert, Muriel Steinmetz-Berg, Samuel Grossman, Eileen Lee Kaplan, Lois Ruth Martin, Frederick Pike, Francis Tonkenau, and Stanton Wolkoff. We also remember at this time those who passed and whose yahrzeit is this evening. And we invite all of you who are remembering an individual to please type their name in the chat room below. And if you're observing a yahrzeit this evening or are currently within the period of mourning, meaning if you've lost an immediate family member during the past 30 days or a parent during the past 11 months, we invite you to rise if you're able or raise your hands. And let me also add verbally, as I've been asked to read the names of Roger Goldstein, Jerry Gottfried, Hilda Katz, Richard Nesson, and Arda Schechter. And let us think of them along with all of those listed in our chat room as we continue by having the mourners in our midst lead us in Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, bi'almad yivrach eroteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayeh d'chol Beit Yisrael, pagalav izman kariv imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mavarach le'elam olamei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei d'kudusha barichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, v'amiran bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
So soon we'll continue with words of Kiddush and Motzi, and we're going to try something new for Motzi this week, because last week we had so much fun spotlighting different individuals dancing for Simchat Torah. That was like the greatest joy of Simchat Torah for those of you who were able to experience it, that we thought we would try spotlighting different individuals for Motzi this year. I see Hannah holding up her challah. So if you have a challah in front of you and you want to get it ready, Rabbi Sapphire is the magic behind the screen. She's the one that has to find you and spotlight you very quickly, especially because Simchat Torah, we were dancing for about 5 minutes and the Motzi is about 20 seconds. So she has a really difficult task this week. But before Kiddush and Motzi, I just want to announce some important things, because just as the Torah is beginning, our programmatic year is beginning, and I hope you'll get involved. Sunday morning, ISEP begins, our Israel Current Events program. We have the youngest mayor in Israel speaking, beginning at 11 o'clock. Should be really interesting, a full year of activity coming up. We hope you'll join us. Then on Sunday, many of our classes begin. Our Hebrew classes, Havaya, our high school program begins. Baderech, our new family and children's learning begins. We have family social action projects taking place in our parking lot. Followed on Monday, Rabbi Sapphire's class begins. I know Ori Feinberg is teaching from Israel this week. T-Bell is very active this week as well. Thursday, we have a social justice program. Rabbi
we have an
Sherman.
Extraordinary program on Thursday night, which is sponsored by the Green Team and the Racial Justice Initiative, exploring the intersection between our environment, our health, and the pandemic. So I hope you'll join us at 7:30 on Thursday evening.
And then next Friday, we return to what we used to do when we were in the sanctuary a year ago. Very often, we would extend our Shabbat evening after our 6 o'clock service with a Shabbat dinner and then a speaker. So we're going to try that next week virtually, which means we'll have our 6 o'clock service, and then we invite you to have Shabbat dinner at home. If you'd like to do it with other people, we're going to set people up in breakout groups after services, and you can eat and converse on Zoom. And then at 8 o'clock, we invite you to return for our learning program. Next week, the learning program will be, I've entitled it The Story Behind the Sermon, because I realized that the sermon I delivered on Yom Kippur about returning this ancient scroll back to Israel lacked some of the details, like how did it wind up in Newton in the first place? And so I've invited Rebecca Cohen, who had the scroll in her basement, to share a little bit of the story. And then, as you know, I brought the scroll back to the Horva Synagogue. After I delivered the sermon, I received an email from a member of the congregation that his family history is deeply integrated with the history of the Horva Synagogue. And in fact, I pulled out a history of the Horva Synagogue, and much of it is dedicated to his great-great-grandfather in the early 19th century. And so Gideon Argov is going to share a bit about his family history and its connection to the Horva, and then I'll fill out more of the story of my trip to Israel. So that's at 8 o'clock next week. Lots of learning, but let's conclude this week with the Kiddush. And Eliza, where are you?
Eliza is right there with her parents, Gretchen and Peter, and I know she has been patiently waiting for this moment. So if we can unmute the Solomons. And Eliza, if you can take that Kiddush cup, which is beautiful and in front of you. I see that you're unmuted now. And if you can begin with the Baruch Atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pori hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava uvratzon, hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehillah, למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים. לשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. You can take a sip. Is there anything in there?
There is.
Oh, you can take a sip. I don't know if it's wine or juice. I guess you're going to tell us real soon, Eliza. What is it?
It's wine.
Oh, it's wine. It's usually juice in the sanctuary. I want to say beautifully, beautifully done. You're the first bar mitzvah student who has gone solo on Zoom, and you led us so beautifully. Eliza is the daughter of Gretchen and Peter sitting there, and also the granddaughter of our longtime members, Hank and Jane. I don't know if we can spotlight them. They might be hard to find, but they're there too, proud grandparents. And now let us turn to Motzi. Rabbi Sapphire, can we get you up on the screen? Oh, there's Hank and Jane. Mazel tov. You can kvel from your residence. How about Rabbi? There she is. All right, Rabbi Sapphire, you got a lot of work to do now. You're going to lead us in the blessing and click on different individuals like Julie Belsky.
All right, keep them high, everyone. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. B'te'avon. And if you keep holding them up, I'll keep showing you a few more.
We're going to have to pick different people each week. Oh, there's so many beautiful halot we're saying. With that, I want to say Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are going to open up the microphones to wish each other Shabbat Shalom. I hope to see you on Zoom this week.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
Shabbat.
Shalom.
Good job, Eliza.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hi there. Everyone. Hi, Sister and Paul.
Run, Marsha.
Shabbat shalom, Rhonda. Shabbat shalom. Good, Shabbat shalom.
Wherever you are.
Hey, Deborah.
Shalom, everyone.
Deborah.
Nice job, Zach. It's up to you. It's weird. They didn't let us look at it.
Hi, Bonnie.
Shalom.
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 Julie.
Shabbat shalom.
Hey, David. Shabbat shalom, David.
Hi, Deborah.
Everyone.
Shabbat shalom, Carol.
Hello, Heidi.
I can't do it anymore.
Hi, David.
Oh, Gail Mansha. Oh, Noah.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi Rachel.
Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, David.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Hello. Next to each other.
Shalom, Rachel.
Shabbat shalom, Daddy.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Dov. Shabbat shalom, Janet. Shalom.
Joy. Shabbat shalom, Joy. Janet. Hi, Janet.
Martin.
Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom.
Hi, Martin.
Hi, Julie Belsky.
Those kids are cute.
Hi, Heather. Hi, Eli.
Hi, Janet. Shabbat shalom, Janet. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you for helping the cancer.
Lauren, can you bring Drew over? They are right here. Nava, Drew is coming.
Oh, Drew's coming.
Nava,
Drew's coming. Oh, lots of people.
Shabbat shalom, Drew.
Marilyn. Shabbat shalom, Marilyn.
Oh, I don't see Marilyn.
Hi, Drew.
They said we can eat.
Hello, Danny. It's Danny Catley. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Debbie. Shabbat shalom, Janet and Dov.
Shabbat shalom.
Hi, Barbara.
Mary. Rhonda, again. See you
Can I
again.
have a bite?
Marsha again.
I love the little voice.
Arthur and Barry.
Hi, David.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Like you can
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sure.
Drew. Sophie's doing no now. You want to do
I think she does. But I drive, but I
Hi, Sophie.
this woman that used to live with Martin and Becky.
Hi, Liz.
She's away.
Ella.
Nice.
How many people are left?
No, she was just really good friends.
It's got 20 minutes.
Mentor.
Oh, you really one of the last ones.
She also helped them out.